Hey guys, it's me, ExandShadow. I just did a 13-minute impression video on Other M, and then Audacity crashed. So yeah, if I sound a little bit bored in this video, it's because I am. I already said all of this. But anyway, yeah, I just beat Metroid Other M. I just beat it. I went through. I saw the credits. I liked it. It was a very good game. However, there were quite a few things that were kind of off about it. I grew up with the Metroid franchise. Metroid Fusion is one of my favorite games of all time. My first Metroid game. It was an amazing game. One of the first games I was legitimately scared of. The SAX scared the shit out of me. It was a very, very good game. If you have not played it, I would highly recommend it. I also got Metroid Prime when I was a kid, but that one I was a little bit less into. The fact that it was in 3D meant it was a lot slower than Metroid Fusion, and also it was a lot easier to get lost. And if there's one thing in a game I hate, it's getting lost. It's a lot better than Super Metroid and Metroid 1 in the getting lost department, but still, I wasn't able to get into Prime 1 very well. Prime 3 I liked a lot, though. I really liked Prime 3. And if you disagree with that, I can understand, but I'm more of a fan of the more linear-ish type of Metroid than the more open-ended type of Metroid. Metroid Zero Mission was also really good too. I really loved that game. But I was really excited for Other M. And now that I've gotten and played it, there were a few things about it that were a little bit off. A lot of things One thing that I heard some complaining about was the amount of story in the game and how it takes away from the atmosphere and how it makes Samus a character, makes her a lot less easier to connect with and blah, blah, blah. I did not mind the story. I thought it was a good story, actually. There were a few things that were weird. Oh, by the way, spoiler alert. Big spoiler alert. Actually, I'm going to get into a lot of things. But in case you don't know or don't care, after Super Metroid, Samus gets a distress call from the bottle ship, and she goes there. She meets Adam Malkovich and her team there, and she helps them in their mission to find out what went wrong, basically. Throughout the mission, you'll see that one of the Federation soldiers that went with Adam is killing off the rest, and you find out that the bottle ship was developing bioweapons, so the Galactic Federation snuck in an agent to kill everyone. One of the disappointments about that is you never actually get to run into this double agent, which is really disappointing that you never got to confront him about this, because it was one of the big things about the game. You saw this person a lot. They tried to attack you one time, but you never get to confront them after it, which was really disappointing. I really wanted to run into this person and have a real fight. But whatever. You find out that they were making Metroids. The first, which kind of takes away some of the impact of Metroid Fusion when they're making the Metroid plant. Though it does it does explain a lot of things from Metroid Fusion, which I'll get into later. But it ends up turning out that an artificial intelligence that they made goes insane, and that's why the space station there runs into chaos. Sometime in the middle of the game, in order to destroy all of the Metroids, Adam sacrifices himself, which is why he's dead, and I think is why he's so heavily imprinted onto Samus's mind in Metroid Fusion. Adam is awesome in this game. The voice acting is awesome in this game, except for whenever Samus talks to herself, which she does a lot. You'll be hearing Samus monologue a whole lot in this game, and it's not very fun. It's mostly insightful crap, blah, 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 but it's in the most droning voice. Like, if you think my voice is bad, listen to Samus and Other M. It's like, the baby Metroid sacrificed itself to me. It attached itself onto Mother Brain and sucked away Mother's life force. I'm on the bottle ship now. Adam Malkovich is there. I like Adam Malkovich. Yeah, it's really that bad. Whenever Samus talks to anyone, it's fine. It's fine then. It's not the best in the game, but it's fine. But whenever it's monologues, God, it sucks. It sucks. But it's nothing that's too bad. Story-wise, there's also a few things that are a little bit weird. For example, Ridley is a little fluffy bunny. I'm not kidding. Ridley, in his baby form, is a little fluffy bunny. If that's not a demoralizing thing, I don't know what is. Yeah, Ridley's a fluffy bunny. Who knew? But anyway, the game's structure is based largely on fusion. You're on a spaceship with multiple sectors based on different environments. However, in Metroid Other M, there are 3, and in Metroid Fusion, there are 6. Yeah. The game's layout does tend to get a little bit repetitive. The areas themselves, I think, are a little bit too large, and you could have had a little bit more variety. But it's not that big of a deal, honestly. One thing that is frustrating because it's based on fusion is that you're always told where to go, and there's little way to get around that. There have been very big precautions taken to prevent sequence breaking. If you can sequence break in Metroid Other M, which I'm sure there's going to be a way, people are insane when it comes to trying to find ways to sequence break in Metroid games. If you're gonna sequence break, it's gonna be hard because the way the game's structured, it makes it hard to sequence break. I'm not gonna lie. It almost goes too far, but I'll get into that later. But yeah, it's very, very linear. You're told where to go exactly. There's very little freedom. It almost goes a little bit too far, and I like linear Metroid. But however, it combines the somewhat frustrating level of linearity from Fusion with the frustration of being totally lost in Super Metroid. I've never found one game where I knew where to go but did not know how to get there. It is very, very frustrating when you're in a room, there are 2 locked doors, the way in and out, and you don't know what to do. There were some spots where I swear I was stuck for like not a half an hour, 10 minutes trying to figure out what am I supposed to do. And that's really, really, really frustrating. When it comes to collecting items, you get your items authorized. Samus technically starts off fully powered. She has her power bombs, gravity suit, space jump, everything. And then at the beginning of the game, she turns all of her stuff off and waits until Adam tells her how to turn it on. And then she does. So that ends to a lot of really, really weird things. Like, for example, at the beginning of the game, they make a point to show that Adam knows what Samus is doing. For somehow, some technobabble reason, Adam can see through Samus's eyes. So, Adam can technically see all the energy tanks and missile tanks Samus can't get because she doesn't have the proper items. If Adam wants the mission to go well, Samus should be as strong as possible. So shouldn't Adam authorize the use of her weapon so she can get more energy and missile tanks? That's one thing. But another thing is, during the lava level, there is a point where you are running in heat a whole lot. There's like 3 or 4 rooms where there's heat, and you have to run through them with no Varia suit. It's not until you run into a boss where Adam finally says, "Okay, Samus, you can put on the Varia suit now." That makes no sense. If Adam knows that there's no way to get through instead of through a heat area, why doesn't he authorize the Varia suit? There's a lot of illogical things like that. And then there's a point late in the game where you lose contact with Adam, so I'm here wondering, Samus, why don't you just turn all of your stuff back on? What? Yeah, that's weird. Anyway, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, but it's also a lot less satisfying to have your stuff turned back on as opposed to getting new stuff, you know? When it comes to gameplay, it generally works pretty well. A lot better than I expected it to, actually, because I heard a lot of previews saying that the controls were clunky. The game works pretty well, honestly. There were a few clunky spots, I have to admit. Moving around without an analog stick in 3D kind of sucks. You know how in Super Paper Mario platforming without an analog stick kind of sucks in 3D? It's sort of the same thing with Other M. There are plenty of jumps which you swear that you made, but you didn't. It's frustrating like that. And the game is highly based on combat. The combat is very dynamic, very fun. The auto-aim works well. The fighting things is fun. But there are also some points where you're trying to do special moves like lethal attacks or overblasts where it's kind of clunky in that it sometimes decides just to not work for some reason. It happened less to me as I went through the game, so maybe I just got better at it, but it's noticeable at least. There are a lot of boss fights in the game, and the boss fights are a lot of fun. Probably the best part of the game. They're all very big highlights, and there are a lot of very climactic and recognizable boss fights. Of course, Ridley comes back. You expect him to come back, but however, there also an unexpected return is Nightmare from Metroid Fusion. I remember running into the Nightmare the first time, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's Nightmare!" And my brother and my mom were there, and later they were saying, "Oh, he was just yelling about this thing," but it was very exciting. It was a very blast of nostalgia fighting the Nightmare again. But yeah, it's a very, very boss fights are very, very fun. But they're hard though. You will die a lot. Especially it might just be me sucking, but I found the game to be hard. Thankfully, the game doesn't shoot you back to the last save room because there are very few save rooms in the game, or at least it feels like it. But it sends you back to the last event spot. So, for example, when you're fighting a boss and you die, it sends you back to the beginning of the boss fight, which was nice. But however, the way that health works in the game sort of makes it also frustrating. The way health and missile power-ups work is that you do not have missile or health pickups. So, like, if you defeat an enemy, you will never see a health or missile pickup. But, however, Samus can recharge her missiles and health when they get too low. But this takes time, and it's really hard to pull off. It's satisfying when you do manage to pull it off, but it's frustrating every time you don't. I would have just liked if you had that option, but there were also some more frequent healing stations or some health pickups. But it's not that big of a deal. The game looks very nice. The game is a very nice looker, probably one of the better looking Wii games. There are very few games that look better than this. Smash Brothers and Mario Galaxy, maybe Sonic Unleashed. Those are the only games I can think of right now that look better than Metroid Other M. It definitely looks better than Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. And that was a pretty good looking game too, so the game looks nice. But however, there is very, very little music in the game. It's mostly ambient stuff, like duh. It's mostly stuff like that, stuff that you wouldn't normally notice and stuff that isn't very memorable, which is a shame. Kenji Yamamoto, the guy who did every other Metroid soundtrack, is not on board for this one. I don't know if they couldn't get him, but he's not there, which is a disappointment because he can make a good score. And other than the boss battle musics, there really isn't much music that's memorable. I think there's one song that I remember being feeling like a Metroid song that was new. And it played for such a short time, and it was so hard to hear over the sound effects. It was disappointing because it was like, oh my god, music, I wish I could hear it. There is music playing during boss battles, but it's nothing memorable, and it's hard to hear anyway over the explosions and stuff. And if there's one thing about a game that I can totally remember is a soundtrack. Like games like the Ace Attorney series or the Mega Man series or Mario or Sonic, those games all have really memorable soundtracks, and up till now, Metroid has had those. Okay, it's had soundtracks that really got you into the game, and I can hum Metroid songs till the end of the day. I can hum Samus's theme, the Rundus battle, Brinstar, Kraid's Lair, Ridley's theme, all these fun songs. But Metroid Other M doesn't have those, which is really disappointing. Yeah. But the game overall feels very much like it's fan service to fans of Super and Metroid Fusion. It doesn't go overboard, but there are a lot of little things that make sense. For example, especially things that transition from Super Metroid to Metroid Fusion. For example, the reason for why there is a frozen Ridley in Metroid Fusion makes sense now, because there was the new Ridley in Metroid Other M, and they took it to the Biologic Space Labs. The Nightmares in the Biologic Space Labs because they took it from the bottle ship. Things like that make sense now, and it's a very good transitionary game. Like, for example, it makes sense that the Galactic Federation would have a Metroid breeding program in the Biologic Space Labs because they tried it before. It's a very good game in terms of that. It's made for Metroid fans, and it is a good game. I would recommend it to non-Metroid fans, but there are a few frustrating aspects to it that might turn you off. So for this one, I recommend a rental. And if you're a big fan of the Metroid series, I recommend a buy. But it is a good game. This has been ExandShadow, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye now.